doing today? We have I don't know. We haven't shot a podcast in 15 years. So
we keep talking about it.
We do, but we're busy people. We got stuff to do.
Yes. As is the nature of real estate.
Right. So what I was talking about earlier, my chair's not adjusted, is I've been doing, as you know, because you do all my files, I have a lot of listings going on. And as part of that, I've been adding things and adding semi-disclosures. And I've gotten to where it's a little bit ridiculous, honestly. And I'm working with a couple of buyers that have gotten disclosure packages that are literally hundreds of pages long. We had one, what was that one in San Jose, the townhouse that had the HOA docs for like 750 pages. They're getting a bit out of hand. But I take stuff, I take a nugget where I can. And one of those nuggets was what to include in a disclosure package. So from your perspective, since you do disclosure packages, what are like the top 10 things that should be in disclosures?
Across the board, all over California?
Board, yeah.
Okay. So there are ones that are required.
Yep.
Obviously, TDS, SPQ, anything on 1 to 4 units, you got to have that.
Yep.
Those will also trigger other disclosures. So for example, if you mark yes on a certain question of the SPQ, you have to fill out a solar advisory. And then there's also ones that are required based on the sale of the build year of your house. So if it's built before 1978, you have to have the lead-based paint disclosure. If it's built before 1960, you have to have the earthquake hazard questionnaire. So there's a lot of nuance with those, but those are the deep down, absolutely keep these on your boilerplate of documents of what you have a seller fill out.
Right.
And then there's other ones that it's interesting because a lot of people require them, but it seems like they're also included on the contract. Like a lot of the verbiage in the statewide buyer seller advisory, a lot of that seems to be
it's like 15 pages of nothing.
Yes. It's also a lot of it's included on the purchase agreement. So it's a little redundant. And then there's
one thing that's in the SBSA that is not I don't think is in the purchase agreement is the Megan's Law stuff. And we don't typically talk about that because it is in disclosures. And I am one that I'll never look. I don't want to know. I don't want to know there's 1,000 creepy people within 100 yards of my house. I just don't want to know that. Ignorance is bliss on that.
Sure.
But there are some people that want to know and they don't know how to look. And so I appreciate that being in there, but you could make that its own thing and not have another 14 and a half pages of
well, it is its own thing. There's also a Megan's Law database disclosure. It's 1 page. It's about 1 paragraph. People also include that with the SBSA. So it varies from brokerage to brokerage. I think that's one of the nice parts about it is that as a broker, you get to determine, yes, we'll sign that. No, we're not going to sign that. And there's no tried and true thorough line of what should and should not be disclosed other than those ones where you have to fill out as a seller.
Yeah.
All of the other ones are just kind of nonsense that no one's going to read. Well,
and there's 5. There's 5 things you have to do.
Yeah, most people will not. Yeah, most people will not read. But I think that the bread and butter of those are the TDS and SPQ. That's kind of the baseline of where people go and look when they look at disclosures is those 2 forms. Right. Those are what really matters. Everything else becomes important, but is not taken as seriously.
Right.
And then also the NHG report, that's a requirement in California.
Yeah.
And that will also trigger disclosures. If you're in a wildfire area, you have to have another disclosure for that. It's just kind of a ripple effect. So you have to just really pay attention to what the forms say.
Right. Well, and on the wildfire note, there is a thing, the CAL FIRE inspection that you're supposed to get done when you list. And it actually dictates, they come out and they inspect, and I've had good inspections, I've had bad inspections, but the remediation thing can be buyer or seller. You don't have to have it done before you sell, but it has to be done within a year of the report. So you have time to cut down that dead tree, and you can leave that for the buyer to do, and you can fix it all tomorrow, right? And if you're maintaining your property well, then you may not have anything to do. In fact, the one that we did in El Dorado 2 years ago now, that's the first time I've ever got it. Guy went in and went, "Why am I here?"
Yeah.
Clear. Bye.
So okay. I took a class on the fire hardening disclosure not too long ago at the Placer County Association of Realtors. And it was really fascinating how much realtors push back on the requirements that they have. People were arguing. So one of them is 6 feet, no bushes from the house. Mm-hmm. And people were arguing, well, I have ornamental plants. Are you telling me I have to rip all those out? And it's like, yes, that's what they're saying. We're talking about a fire burning down your entire house and you're worried about your birds of paradise. I understand. I get it. I really understand the like ornamental value of your plants, but we're talking about you're in a high fire severity zone, which means if you don't have these restrictions, the chances of your house burning down and everything in it goes up a lot. So it was very interesting to me to see how many realtors chose to push back and fight with the CAL FIRE reps that were there trying to teach you how to use this form and what it means. When that was what they were fixated on, it's like, well, getting rid of all of the brush on my entire property is a pain in the ass. And it's like, well, yeah, yes, it is. That's why it's so important, because
you know what does
such
it
a
really
fire
quick
hazard.
is fire.
Yeah.
Fire will solve that for you very quickly.
Yes. Yes, it will. So I think maybe the reason why people push back on so many disclosures is because it will put a little bit more of a seriousness or a burden on a buyer or a seller when they understand what the disclosure means in terms of legalities.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, in reality, disclosures do one of a few things. One, they protect the broker above pretty much all else. 2, they protect the seller, and they just tell you, here's all the dumb stuff we can think about, right? And if there's anything that we didn't think about, then, that's a liability. But in reality, there's so much over disclosure and duplicate disclosure just so nothing gets missed, right? Because there's a lot of, well, we told you, you signed it, right? You can't come back later and say you didn't know you had to kill the bushes within 6 feet of your house because it's on page 943 of this document you signed but never read.
Yep.
Right. And I think DocuSign makes that worse, right? Because it is just click next, click next, click next, click next. Whereas when it was hand signing, you're turning the page. Like, what's this page? Well, this page is this and this page is that. So I do think that over disclosure is, while annoying, is the world we live in. And as you well know, I hate over disclosure. Like, I absolutely despise the amount of stuff we have to do. If I could limit it to the 5 things that are statutory required, that's what I would do. But you and I both know that will not float. But back to me looking at disclosures from other properties and kind of the stuff that I've been roped into having to include. I have a list of like 20 things, and I do like 8 of them because it's the 8 that I want to do. But some of these are really smart. And the big HOA doc file that was ridiculous is one of them. Having a prelim and a color-coded easement map. That was eye-opening. I had a property that had like 15 easements, and I called my escrow officer. I'm like, what in the holy butt nuggets is this? And she's like, well, I can get you a color-coded easement map. I said, I know what those words mean, but I've never heard them in that order. Like, what are we talking about here? And she said, well, hang on, I'll get you one. So a couple days later, it comes back, and it was a miracle. Like the overlay and the this and the that, and where even is that, right? But it was amazing and super helpful. So now anything that has more than one easement, I just get a map. I don't care if you're in town, out of town, in the mountains, in the valleys. I don't care, right? They're free. They're super easy to do. Your title folks do them. It's a 7-word email, right? And we get those. I had another one.
They're not an extra charge too, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, they just
more knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Permit reports. I can't tell how many times as well, when was the HVAC installed? We don't know. But if they did it right, there's a permit, right? And like at J Castle, we get 25 free permit reports a year through our E&O insurance. So unless we have more than 25 listings, they're all free. And we can just download them, throw them in disclosures. And that's what we know, right? Age of something, that's what we know. Was it permitted? That's what we know, right?
I would say that also having a contractor or a go-to inspector that you know and trust who would potentially go down to the county for you and look for those things. Like we looked into having our deck replaced, and the guy, before we even paid him anything, went down to the county to make sure our deck was permitted, and if it wasn't, what that meant. And he really got the full picture of things. And I know maybe not everyone can do that for every transaction, but having someone who maybe you do, I don't know, a couple transactions a year and you know someone who would be willing to do that legwork for you, I think that's a super big selling point for a vendor too, to think about.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, just on that topic of inspectors, like most of us have a go-to home, roof, pest, sewer guy, right? And in the Bay
Or girl.
Area, or girl, person, human, whatever.
Yes.
Um, you're right. One of mine's a girl. But anyway, there is, in the Bay Area and then in some Southern California counties, the seller getting reports before listing is the norm. And if you don't do it, you kind of get abuse, for lack of a better word. But it's less so up where we are in Sac, Placer, El Dorado counties. It's kind of buyer responsibility more than seller. Now, depending on the listing and the price point, and how much we're trying to be proactive on stuff, we will get inspections on stuff. The one in Granite Bay right now that we did all the inspections, and it had a lot of benefit, right? We found out we had like a $10,000 pest report. And so we called our handyman guy, went, here's your punch list.
Yeah.
Make it happen, Captain. And when people came back, we're like, we did everything on the punch list except for these two things, right? And they're appreciative of that. That house needs a roof, and so we didn't do the roof sheathing, right? Because you're going to get new sheathing and do the new roof. But to that point, if you know you have a problem with something like that, get quotes. That way you know what the exposure is. The buyer knows what the exposure is. We got three. They were $3, $10, and $14 or whatever the numbers were, right? But it kind of gave them an ABC option and kind of anyway. So quotes on major mechanicals is a thing.
Why do you think listing agents are so averse to doing those kinds of things prior to going into contract?
A few things. One, laziness. Two, lack of education. And three, they're worried it will tank a deal, right? If you give too much data up front, well, let's not even look at that one then, right? If it needs a roof and the HVAC's 20 years old, we're not even going to look at it, right? And that, sure, that could be a problem. But if they were worried about that stuff, it doesn't matter if they looked at it because they weren't going to buy it anyway, right? So it thins out your view pool, but I don't think it thins out your buyer pool. Part of the inspections thing is it costs money, right? So to have a seller come in and pay $1,000 for the normal inspections before they even go on the market, some folks just can't afford to do that. Like they don't have an extra $1,000. If they do have it, it is a good thing to do. There is an inspector. I don't think he's in business. I actually think he passed away, but I won't name his name. But he was out of Grass Valley. He was a pest inspector, and if I was a listing agent, I would get him to come do a pest inspection every time. Because if he couldn't see it from the curb sitting in his truck, it didn't exist. Right? So, but on the flip side, I would never have him do one as a buyer's agent, right? For the same reason. Now, his son-in-law was about 5'2", maybe weighed 17 pounds, and that guy could get everywhere. I had a deck that had like 9 inches of clearance underneath it, and he found dry rot all the way underneath it. Like, I don't even know how he got under there. Even being a little dude, I don't know how he got back there, but he had pictures and a pokey stick of rotten beams under there. So I had to tear out an entire deck to fix it, which any other, not just the old guy, but any other pest inspector would not have found that. Right.
Do you think there should be some sort of regulation when it comes to inspectors akin to like what appraisers go through in terms of, because it does really seem like you're kind of alluding to, you use this inspector when you're a buyer, you don't use it when you're a seller.
Right.
It does seem like there's really kind of a spectrum, I guess I would say, of how intricate inspectors can or cannot be.
Oh, 100%. And there's all kind of associations. And so back to that guy, people started to figure out that's what he did. And so they wouldn't count those. They'd go get their own if that's what you had. So, good agents kind of weed that stuff out pretty quickly, but you can go get your ASHRAE certificate and I don't remember all the home inspector ones. There's 4 or 5 of them. And it's like, you buy it, you go, here's my $30 a year check and give me my little logo and put on the website. And that's it. So you can become a home inspector very easily and very quickly with absolutely zero knowledge of anything. And you pay for the software and you just walk around the house and be like, consult a professional, this looks bad, consult a professional. because none of the home inspections do anything. They point out kind of obvious stuff. And I mean, I say obvious because I've been around this for a while. I've been flipping houses forever. You know, when I see water damage under a cabinet, there was a leak there.
Mm-hmm.
What's leaking? Is it the inlet lines or the drain? I don't know. But, you know, with a little bit of knowledge and sticking your head under there, you figure it out. But I have an investor friend who went and paid his $30 a year for 4 or 5 different organizations. And he does this. He has a friend do the home inspections. He puts on the software. His friend signs it as a home inspector, and he puts them on his listings. And that is technically disclosure. It's ridiculous, and it's stupid. And you know the agent, you know the investor. I mean, you know who it is. But he got tired of inspectors tanking deals, because a bad inspector will tank a deal. A good inspector will save a deal, right? But a bad inspector can absolutely tank one. You see that drip right there? That means the house is going to fall down because water fell out of that sink once, and now the whole foundation is going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And a first-time home buyer is going to panic. Even a fifth-time home buyer might panic on that. But a good inspector can go, yeah, I see that that's cracked, but that's a settling thing. You know, everything in this area is going to have that. You know, it's not a big deal. Get it reviewed by a professional if you feel you need to. But you know, it's not. That isn't the end of the world. I'd be more worried about that than that, right? And I have a really good inspector that I know, like, and trust, and he actually did the very first inspection on my very first buy side I did 1,000 years ago, and he was with a major national company, and he left there, went out on his own, called me and said, "Hey, I left major company. I'm now on my own. I'd love it if you'd stick with me on business." And I was like, absolutely. Well, major company had him trained on home, roof, and pest, right? He's not licensed to do pest. He's not a pest guy, so he can't do a formal pest inspection. And he's not a roof contractor, so he can't do a formal roof inspection. But he's trained to do them. So he comes do the home, and he'll say, you know, hey, you should get a pest report because look, this, and this. Or he'll go, you can get one if you want, but you don't need one. You know, this is the 2 things you're going to find, and they're nothing, right? Same thing with roof. He flies a drone over and goes, well, you have a loose that and a this, that, and you probably should replace that. Or go, get a roof inspection. He also does sewer scopes and pool stuff now, but I don't use him for that because he can't give quotes. Like the sewer inspection, I want a vendor that can give me a quote at the end, right? Just like a pest inspection. If it's bad enough that I need to get a pest inspection, I want a quote at the end.
Yeah.
We all know that quote is garbage. You know, it's 250% of what anyone else could do it for, because pest companies know that time is of the essence. They know you're over a barrel, and they know they can charge what they want. And so they do. But having a good handyman that can, you know, scab in a piece of wood on the front side of the garage door because the bottom 3 inches is worn and has dry rot, you know, that's for $200 versus $2,000. That's beneficial. Yeah. But yeah, so inspections, good to have in disclosures if you can get them. In long story long.
On with inspectors that you know are thorough and don't just look out from the curb. Yeah. Which is, right. Is living in California and how much things like to be regulated here. It's pretty surprising that that hasn't been talked about or looked into or anything of that regard.
Yeah.
You know,
they should be. Yeah. Oh, and home inspectors, the maximum liability for a home inspector per their contracts is the cost of the inspection, and only to the person who ordered the inspection. So the seller buys the inspections, and something is completely screwed up. The buyer has absolutely zero recourse, only the seller, and only for the amount they paid for the inspection.
Hey, if there's any attorneys or lobbyists watching this right now, I've got a really great idea for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's asinine. But so that's all the asinine stuff. But on the flip side, you know, good inspectors do point out things that are worth knowing, right? Mm-hmm. When my mom bought her house that she's in now, a home inspector went, there's a crack in your foundation and you should have that looked at. And she did get an actual foundation repair company to come out, and there was a $40,000 problem that we got negotiated and whatever. But had we not gotten a home inspection, she wouldn't have known that and been surprised by a $40,000, maybe more if she waited 2, 5, 10 years to fix it. So they do serve a purpose sometimes. What I find annoying is that they will say, consult a professional, consult a professional. Well, aren't you I hired you to be the professional, not to go check with somebody else, check with somebody else, check with somebody else.
I feel like maybe that's just pushing liability onto someone else. But who do you think people should call when they see that?
A licensed professional.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a plumbing issue and it says check a licensed professional, call a plumber, right?
Yeah.
You have a foundation crack, call a foundation company. And back to my inspector that I use, whose name is also Ken. But, when Ken comes out, he'll say, that's a plumbing problem, but it's a $3 part at Home Depot, right? Like you don't need $1,000 plumber to come out and fix that, right? Tighten the nut, you'll be fine. But he says that to me privately because he's not going to tell a buyer that and take on that liability, right? But so his report says consult a professional. But again, me being a flipper and knowing stuff, I speak to that. But but I preface, I am not a fill in the blank. However, I fixed that before, and it's $3 part at Home Depot, right? Once you open a wall, you never know what's behind there, so take that as caution. But
so when you have buyers who are telling you that they don't want to have inspections performed, or that they have a friend of a friend, or their stepfather's a contractor, or what have you, what do you typically say to them? No.
Yeah, kind of. Well, here's a form you're going to sign that says, I told you to get inspections and you didn't do it. That's a form I do like.
Yes, I'm familiar. I'm one of the few, well, I wouldn't say few, but I'm one of, I would say in the minority of TCs who insist on having a buyer inspection waiver signed if a buyer, our side or the other side, is choosing to not have a home or pest inspections done.
Yeah.
I feel like that's such a huge risk. Even just as a TC, I'm like, oh, that's not a good idea.
Right.
Unless it's an investor who's just going to flip it. I understand that. But
still BIW. I mean, still, we told you didn't do it. Your problem.
Yes. And that's come in handy for us a couple of times. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also the it's still the BIW when you use somebody else's reports that I'm not getting my own home because I used their home.
Yep.
Which I used their shitty inspector. I did it again. I used their inspector and not my own. And so if I got a bad report, it's not on the agent. Again, disclosures protect brokers as much as they protect sellers. So, which I appreciate.
And agents. Agents' least favorite disclosure in the entire world, their agent visual inspection.
Oh, 100%.
Yes. And
I wonder how many AVIDs are done at their home computer. Just no notes, nothing noted, nothing, blank, 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 blank signed.
An alarming amount.
Oh, I know.
And it's very funny to see the parallels because there'll be agents that say just nothing to note on everything. It's like, wow, this is an immaculate home. That's wonderful. And then there's agents who I've literally seen 12 text overflow addendums on an Avid before.
Oh, yeah.
12 pages of people talking about stuff in the home. And it's like, okay, there's a fine line here of a happy zone. Right. You're both out of it. You have to actually walk through and look around.
So the AVID actually started during the collapse in the late aughts, right? Because it was agents out of the area selling homes they've never been in and buyers buying sight unseen. And they come in and go, what is this? How come you didn't tell me? And they're like, well, I'm in Orange County and you bought in Redding. I don't know. I didn't go there. Right. And so the AVID was really created to show that the agent has been there. Right. Or to at least document that they say they were there. And I am guilty of doing a remote AVID. Right. But after I've been in the house 10 times and I could tell you where the scratches are. Right. And I go, oh, I didn't do it. I was there. Crap. All right. Let's go through the rooms. Foyer, there was a cracked tile, bathroom, right? Or I go through pictures again and be like, oh, yep, that's right. I remember that was there. Write that down.
So what do agents go to homes for home inspections to walk buyers through, to do whatever. Why do you think it's such a struggle for them to bring a piece of paper and just write it down or type it in the notes of their phone or something like that? What do you think the disconnect is there?
So, or use the Glide AVID app, which is amazing. Yeah. For me personally, it's that one, I forget, and two, I'm usually there with someone and I'm engaged with that person, right? I'm walking through with a buyer. No, your couch is only 72 inches wide. That's 97. That'll fit there. or an inspector who, I'm following around and asking questions and what are you looking at? What is that? Right. And I'm not going around doing that. And then by then you're there for 3 hours. You're like, okay, we done. Cool. Bye. And you home and go, so I think that's a lot of it. I think just stubbornness. Here's a fun fact. The LA listing agent AVID is a statutory requirement. The buyer's agent AVID is not, but the listing agent one is, and it counts as a seller disclosure. So if they don't do one, you can extend your contingencies by a week or by 5 days, business week.
It seems like most agents don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen other agents who do know that and have used that to their advantage. And it's just like, yeah, I want to let you know that if your clients are not signing your AVID or the NHD signature page or something, we're just extending their contingency period. They can cancel at any time till the close of escrow.
Yep.
Like there's maybe a third of my agents that I work with. Sorry to call you out, but you guys do your AVID when you do your final walkthrough. And that's
I'm not
good practice.
I'm
No,
not that late.
I'm not calling you out specifically. There's another third of people.
Oh, 100%.
They like to wait until the week of closing. And I think that's so dangerous.
On the buy side, that's okay though. It's only the listing agent that's statutory.
But what if there are issues in the final walkthrough?
Then you already released and your buyer agent is a moron. But
yeah.
But I mean,
but there's material defects that you see as an agent that you have to write on your AVID that somehow nobody else caught.
Which for a buyer's agent would be rare for them to find something somebody else didn't. But
yeah. Or there was the sellers moved out between the time that AVIDs should have been done and now, and there's a bunch of damage from movers, what have you.
Well, that's what the VP's for.
Yeah.
So the VP is, house looks great, except the movers knocked down a wall. Or you move the couch and there's a 3 foot by 2 foot hole in the wall, right? Or the floors are damaged under that rug you had. That's what the VP is for. And you could stop closing, you can make other demands on that. I mean, at that point, you've reached contingencies and it's going to be hard to fight stuff, but it's possible. But back to AVIDs for a second. So, but you said there's some that are just ridiculously detailed and there's some that are not. And I'm somewhere in the middle, I think. I am a walk in the room. I don't open things. No. I don't flip switches. I walk in and go, what can I see from the doorway? I can see worn carpet. I can see nail holes. I can see broken, obvious things. I am not a contractor. I am not a home inspector. I am not qualified. Well, in my current capacity as an agent, I am not qualified to comment on stuff, right? So only things I'm qualified to comment on do I note. I'm qualified to do a lot of things in other capacities, but in my capacity as an agent, I limit my scope to that. Now, I saw one, it was a deal we did in Oakley, I don't know, 5 years ago now. And that was one of your 12 pages of TOAs. And she said, bathroom light works, bathroom vanity light works, like shower curtain slides. I was like, what are you doing? Like, it took you a week to do this, AVID. Like, what? Yeah. And she still missed things. The hilarious thing is she still missed things. And she blamed the seller. She's like, well, they didn't want us to put that in the AVID before, in our listing disclosures because there was a safe hidden behind a picture and they didn't want to disclose that because they didn't want people to know there's a safe back there, which, okay, but it should have been in something post offer. Right.
But
and
also,
we didn't find
again,
it the picture was gone.
Yeah. And that falls in the category of like what's within your field of vision without moving stuff as an agent. Like, okay, moving a shower curtain, sure. But like opening cabinets and inspecting under a sink, right? Not really your responsibility as an agent. You don't need to go out in the backyard and listen to see if you hear for dogs barking or something. So
JR.
That was on one. Yeah.
So, I mean, we have an agent here that his AVID is, it is, so he does the form, but then he does a supplemental that's like 4 pages of just not handwritten, but like text. And it's from the front porch, you can hear noise from that freeway and that major road. And in the backyard, you can hear 3 birds chirping and you can smell the industrial plant 9 miles away. I mean, like he is literally so detailed. And I said, dude, you're actually opening yourself up to lawsuit, right? Because you go out front, you say, I can hear road noise from freeway. and they go, that's not the freeway. I can't hear freeway, but I can hear noise from that road.
Yeah.
And now you have over disclosed kinda and under disclosed kinda. Whereas if you just didn't say anything, you have zero liability.
Or said traffic noise heard.
Right. Or something. Right.
Yeah.
But being as detailed as he is, he does open himself up to different liability. And he and I argue that point constantly. Because he's like, well, I don't like going to court. And if I go to court, I'm going to win. And I was like, cool, I've gone to mediation. I've gone to 6. I've only lost 1. And that one we never should have been in ever. Like we were completely in the wrong, but the buyer wanted to go. And so he went and we lost. And we as we should have. Like, truly. But I went because I'm supposed to. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, agents are wonky on that stuff.
They're wonky on everything.
Oh, 100%.
Agents can be very fickle, which I kind of love because you never know what you're going to get.
100%.
Agents are a box of chocolates. They truly are. It's quite an industry.
So we've talked before about my utter disdain for other brokers' required disclosures, especially when they're the buyer and they're like, we need the seller to sign this disclosure about something that you don't need to disclose or you don't want to disclose or, whatever, affiliated business arrangement stuff. Okay, I get the affiliated business one, but that's not between the seller and the buyer. That's between the buyer's broker and the buyer. The seller has no business. I have no business signing that. That's not my department. Right. So I hate those with a passion, but there are some mostly medium box places that do that, right? The bigger local places, someone like KW or EXP or whatever, they don't usually have too many of those, but it's your the big fish in a small pond brokers have those, I found. Is that what you see as well?
I actually see quite a few Keller Williams and Coldwell Banker disclosures that are specific to brokerages. Those ones, it seems like they kind of, I don't know the inner workings, but it seems like they operate more like franchises as part of the corporation. And so each franchise has their own mini broker and they'll kind of determine which of the Keller Williams umbrella of broker disclosures they want to include.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Yeah.
It varies from place to place and from county to county. Like in the desert, there's always going to be some sort of disclosure. Like in Joshua Tree, the Joshua Trees are protected there. And so pretty much every broker I've worked with in Joshua Tree has some sort of Joshua Tree disclosure that they've created. So it definitely varies, but I would say the tiny boutique brokerages don't typically have them.
Right.
And I see more and more of like the mid-scale brokerages to have ABAs that only their client signs, is not both sides.
Right.
So they're definitely starting to drift away from that, which is nice. But there's definitely, like, especially in the Bay Area, is like a whole different beast. As I've said before, I think they have every broker disclosure you could possibly want it provided. And so I kind of get it because it's like a mold disclosure. Okay. And then it's an affiliated business or like it's an advisory. And it's like, I kind of understand it. But again, I think it's the stepping into the over disclosing.
Right.
Why are you needing to feel like you need to disclose this?
So. Well, and agents and inspectors both screw this up because they see something black on the walls and it's black mold. We should all put it on face masks and run away. And I'm like, is that black mold or is that mold that is black? Or is it mildew? Or is it dirt? Or is it,
splatter?
Right. Okay. You're in a bathroom that has the windows closed and a 90-year-old exhaust fan and there's mildew on the ceiling. That's not black mold. You're not going to die. I'm not a mold expert. I'm not going to say that out loud in my current capacity, but I've seen enough things to know what mildew looks like.
Yeah.
Right. But people get scared and, you can't help that.
I think the perspective they're coming from is we want to warn people about these things so they're at least aware of them because buyers and sellers are pretty unaware of things. I mean, this is all new to them. I think a lot of agents, the barrier to entry for this industry is very low. So I think even a lot of agents are unaware of these things. And every transaction you learn something, which is wonderful. But I kind of get it from that perspective. But I do think it can possibly scare people a lot more 100%. Than it needs to be.
Naturally occurring asbestos in El Dorado County.
Yes.
Been there for hundreds of millions of years.
Yeah.
Don't sand it. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, I actually had a friend, unrelated to my real estate life, but he bought a house and he was getting the floors replaced. And the flooring contractor sent in 2 junior woodchucks who sanded the asbestos floor tiles. Like they went in there to like level something out and they sanded the tiles. And the guy came home and he's like, nope, walked back out, called the guys, like, get your guys out of there. And 2, you're knocking my house down and rebuilding it. And they pretty much did. They replaced everything, all of his clothing, all of his furniture. They replaced everything in his house, all new HVAC ducts, a whole new HVAC system. Like they had, the dust is everywhere. So he was out of his house for like a year and a half and it was a mess.
Thanks.
But you send in junior woodchucks and you get junior woodchuck work, right? To your point, they don't know. They're young generally, and they've never seen it before. And they don't know that you don't mess with 9-inch tiles.
Yeah.
Right? Because big 12 by 12s, those are not generally asbestos. 6 by 6s, also not. 9 by 9, almost always.
Yeah.
So, all right, getting off of asbestos. So how often do you see things like utility bill history?
So with the prevalence of PG&E in this area and solar, I definitely see a lot of that because people want to know how much true up bills are. They want to know how much they're actually paying PG&E every month with a full solar panel, especially if they're leased.
Right.
It's like almost guaranteed you need to provide PG&E bills. Some other places require like water retrofit stuff done. And so they sometimes want to see or just have some sort of additional knowledge about that. But I would say the only utility bill I see consistently is PG&E.
Yeah. So I've been asking, well, what is the true up bill? Right. And I have one right now, the one in Penryn, that they have 66 solar panels or something. And the seller had a $4,000 true up bill. And the buyer's like, what are they doing that they have 66 panels are still paying $4,000? Well, it turns out the seller has 8 kids they homeschooled. Yeah, they use a lot of power, right?
Yeah.
My buyers are 2 old people that maybe have one TV they're going to turn on twice a week. Like your power usage is going to be very different than their power usage. So you're probably not going to see a $4,000 true up bill because you don't do anything, right? So I think even that is a misnomer unless you know the actual use case. When I bought my house in Livermore, it had a small 12-panel system or something because it was a little old lady that lived alone that put it on there, and I didn't even know she had a TV. Right? Then my family moves in with 9,000 electronics and 4 computers that run 24 hours a day. You know, my use case was not her use case, and so I had a very big true-up bill, which surprised me the first year. But then I knew, I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to change what I do in my life. My habits are not changing. I'm just going to write a big check in November. That's just what it's going to be.
Yeah, you just budget for that at that point.
Exactly. What about stuff for like leased things, propane tanks, that kind of stuff? You ever see contracts and stuff on there?
I do, because they will include the price of the propane that's left over. The seller paid for that, and sometimes the sellers want a credit. It'll be like, I don't know, $45 or something, or they'll have the propane tank filled before the close of escrow or what have you, and they usually have it inspected. Same thing with septic tanks. They want those inspected and pumped. Yep. So they're nice and empty for the new owners. Month-to-month bills, though, no, it's not typically something that is included. Usually it'll be a 1-page form that just says how much on average do you think you spend on propane, or just very simple stuff. It's not a ton of documentation that's required for like the last 12 months. Yeah.
Like I have a propane tank and it's leased and I pay, I think, $85 a year for it.
Wow.
And I would put that into, I mean, just for the tank, just to have it existing in my backyard, because I don't want to buy one. And it was $85 a year. I could, for $2,000. That's a lot of years, $85 a year. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the SWPI, the septic well propane addendum, is used way too infrequently. That should be used way more than it is. But 2, I think that contracts and disclosures, I think, are important. And it never really occurred to me that stuff was important until I saw them. And I'm like, that's a really good idea. I don't put any of that stuff in my listings. Yeah. And so now I'm trying to get better at that, to have all that stuff up front. I could ask for it. It's on some of the, like the SWPI is a propane tank leased, what's the cost on it, right? But the contract is more detailed, it's more complete. And if the seller has it, put it in there. I mean, technically you're supposed to disclose that anyway, right? Any contracts or manuals or reports that you have, you're supposed to disclose. But I don't see that stuff very often at all.
And I think that goes back to people not reading these documents. I can't imagine many agents sit down and read the contract every 6 months when it's re-released and updated. But there's a checkbox for the SWPI on the contract that you can mark as being included. I mean, there's a couple of things in that same section that tangentially relate to the leased or owned property items on the property. So I think it's just a matter of people don't sit down and read these things. It's 17 pages and it's a lot of words. I get it. But it's something you deal with every single day. So it does have some value to know that.
So like the SWPI covers the who's pumping, who's inspecting, who's locating on septic. And I think sellers should pump every time. Inspections, I could be convinced either way. Up here, buyers do more than sellers, but if you're going to pump it anyway, look in it. Actually, $200, if that.
It's surprising how many sellers too also don't know where their septic tank is.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's also important to find out, because sometimes they're buried and you have to uncover them. So if you don't know where it is, I mean, the inspector could be out there for a long time or just not show up unless you know.
Well, so important. There's locator services that will come find them for you, which I had one. It's actually one of my properties I flipped in Placerville, and we bought it off market from this 9,000-year-old, Civil War vet that he didn't know where it was. He's like, my son lived here. I don't have any idea. But I asked him who pumped it. He's like, I think I saw a truck that said, Uncle Jimmy's pump service or whatever. And I called them like, oh yeah, we know where it is. And they came out.
Right.
It was like 18 inches deep. They dug it up and they gave me a map, and it was like measured from two corners of the house, 18 feet from this corner and 22 feet from this corner. Right. There's your triangle. And I'm like, neat, good enough. Scan disclosures. I'm out.
Absolutely.
So, what about service records? Do you ever see service records for last time the HVAC was serviced or stuff like that?
Almost never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
That's usually like usually a seller who keeps every receipt they have kind of thing, where they're so on top of their records that they are for sure over disclosing without a doubt. But otherwise, no, I never see service records, because I think typically, no, I don't think there's a typical for that. I think, it's just not something I really ever see. I'll see like utility providers. So it's like our pool guy is this person. Yeah. Our gardener is this person. So it's like, if you want to continue with these services of the person who already knows the property, here you go. But
this is what I pay. Here's his phone number.
Yeah. So it might include like the people who service our HVAC is this company, but it's never like, oh, we do it religiously every 6 months or what have you, unless they choose to disclose that. But no, I never see service records.
I can see like HVAC tune-ups. If you have one done every year and you just happen to have one of the things or the last one, you're like, hey, we need an HVAC tune-up. We do them every April or whatever, right? I could see that being in there. But I don't see those once I saw, much to your point, someone had every receipt from their whole life. We have a 12,000 page disclosure that I'm sure no one read. But the question where, when was the HVAC last serviced? I'm sure that's in there. And actually, I just watched, totally changing the subject. I just today watched a video on AI, and using Notebook LM, he put all of the HOA docs, the 750 pages, in a Notebook LM and said, give me a summary of all recent or proposed changes to the HOA stuff. And it kicked out like a 2-page, they talked about this, or, they're going to re-roof in January. They're going to, whatever. And just a 2-page, don't read 750. Here's the highlights, right? And that's amazing, right? I wouldn't do that as a listing agent and provide it. No. But as a buyer's agent, grab it and be like, what do I care about?
I've definitely seen some buyer's agents start to use AI to summarize inspection reports and write a request for repairs for them. Which I think is, I get the intention, but I think that's a little tricky.
Most inspections,
I don't want to say negligent because that's not the right word.
Right.
I hope those agents are still choosing to read the inspection reports, at least the bullet points of them.
Right.
But also, I'm seeing a lot more agents rely on ChatGPT or whatever to summarize that, and then they just copy and paste it into their email, and it's very obvious.
Yeah. And what's stupid about that is that most home inspections have like here's the stuff you care about at the top. And one of them, I think it's Ken. I think it's my inspector. Natalie does more buyers than I do, so a lot of my data is secondhand. But I think his is the one where you can go in and check the boxes and say, I care about 1, 2, 7, 9, and 14. Give me repair requests. And it will actually spit out a thing with the pictures and the numbers and that you can include with your repair request. Because oftentimes you'll include the report with your repair request, but you could do both. Here's a summary that I care about, and here's the whole report behind it. Right. Instead of just putting the thing, oh shit, what is number 14? Oh, did it again. What is number 14? Why do I care? Right.
Yeah.
But having just a 1 or 2 page thing about what the 6 things we care about, 6 things we're asking for is really cool. And I don't need GPT to do that. I can check boxes on an inspection report.
So how much do you think agents' responsibility lies in being able to read an inspection report and kind of get the fundamentals or just basic understanding of it?
I'm torn because as a broker, it's not our lane. Buyer read inspections, they make decisions, right?
But who is potentially less informed than you are?
100%. Well, and that's why I'm torn, because from a legal perspective, not our lane. Leave that between the inspector and the home or the buyer, right? As a customer service oriented, educated person, right? And I am likely more educated on this stuff than most, right? And you can never use me as a baseline for anything because my life is stupid. But the average agent, to your point, does know more than the average consumer about inspection reports. But it is not our job to say, that's not a big deal. You don't care about that. It's just a washer. Like, it's no big deal, right? Because while that may be true, it may also not be true. And if you tell a buyer that's not a big deal, it's just a drip in a faucet, but it turns out that that's because there's some major thing behind it, right? In a year when that explodes and they come back and go, you said it wasn't a big deal, it was a really big deal, right? I'm coming after you. Whereas if the inspector goes, it's dripping, talk to a plumber. I don't know, right? Which, again, back to home inspectors not knowing what the hell they're doing. But that's their problem, right? That's their job to tell the buyer that. So again, I'm torn. From a liability perspective, not our lane. From a customer service perspective, I get it. I do it. I shouldn't, but I do it. But I'm also more educated than the average agent or the average consumer.
How would you feel about if agents' go-to move was to talk to their broker about what they found in inspection reports? For a large-scale brokerage, I know that wouldn't be applicable because that'd be like hundreds of agents coming to one person.
Right.
But I would hope that brokerage itself would have a team of brokers or stand-in brokers that could help advise.
Right. So I can speak about what I do, right? Because if one of our agents came to me and was like, hey, I have an inspection report. It says that the yellow Twinkies are broken. What do we do? Again, having knowledge, I would be able to say, well, yellow Twinkies are, not necessary, but if they're broken, you should fix them. And I don't think I would advise any more than ask for it in a repair request. Right.
Okay.
If you and or the buyer are concerned about it, ask for a repair request. Talk to the inspector again if you have to, understand what that means, and ask for it. And if they say no, then we are where we are, right? But I'm not an expert in everything, but I am knowledgeable in some things. So the average broker, I don't think would even fall into that category. I think that someone in my position, sub 50 agents, local focused, may not have construction knowledge and things that I do. So they may be less inclined to offer support there other than call the inspector. Like, ask them what the hell that is. Right.
Right.
Or call a professional. If they said, I don't know what this is, call a professional. Call a professional. And we all should have vendor lists of people that we can call and be like, hey, can you look at this inspection report? Tell me what that is. Oh, good thing, bad thing. Cool. You need to come out and see it. How about Tuesday? Right? Like we should have resources to get those answers. Right.
Yeah.
But as an agent, without broker approval, you should not be talking about things on an inspection report. That said, everybody does it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right.
How many times have you seen that go sideways? That's a better question.
So here's the thing with that is that you'll present a request for repair. And I've seen a lot of times the listing agent replying with, explain how you got to that number. And so then that ties into, well, here's what's on the inspection report. Here's how we, viewed that.
Right.
And so I think stepping into that lane is a little inevitable at times, but I think that there's a way to talk about things of what you've seen historically as an agent and what was done in that circumstance. And then that's kind of like your way of being like, this is what I've seen, make your decision based on that, which is what I do with all of my agents. If I can't legally advise agents how to fill out forms or whatever, but I can say, I've seen an agent word it this way. That's my way of being like, you need to word it like this. Right. So I think there's certainly a way to kind of like tiptoe into the lane without actually get into it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's common practice. I do think that agents read it and say, well, the inspector says these 5 things are, red flag items. We should just ask for all of those.
Yeah.
So.
There's an agent that I know that he says he brings them paper forms for TDS and SPQ, and he hands them to them and says, fill this out to the best of your ability, the way that you understand the question. Walks away. That's it.
Yep.
And he has zero involvement in that, which I don't necessarily. I'm not a fan. I actually like the new Glide thing. If you pay for Glide, you get if they can ask a clarifying question. What is this asking me? Well, it's asking if you have an exhaust fan in your bathroom. Do you have a fan in your bathroom?
I think the free version has that too. Maybe not, but I'm pretty sure there's a couple, at least not for all of them, but there's definitely a couple questions where you can kind of click a little, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And it will give you a little bit more backstory of what the hell that is talking about. So.
Right. Well, and coaching on disclosures, right? Like that's another thing is agents that either overcoach or undercoach, like the one I just talked about who doesn't coach at all. Here's the forms, fill them out. Or the ones that say, oh, maybe don't say that. No, say that. Like if you have to ask, you have to say it.
Yeah.
Right. There's ways to phrase things and not be scary. Right. Any pets on the property? Yes. That's yes and no are full sentences in that regard. Right. Saying yes, a cat that peed on everything in the house.
So the thing with yes and no is that that's not sufficient on the TDS and SPU. If you answer yes, you have to provide an explanation.
Sure.
And the yes is already provided. Yeah. So cats could be, or just say pets.
Yeah. Animal kind.
Yes. Things with ears. Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
Typically not a problem with that, but I have seen agents go back through and say, you forgot about this, this, and this, and they'll certainly add more to it.
Yeah.
Especially agents who are very involved in the process and help with staging and help with repairs and have inspections done early on and fix those things prior to going to market so they can get a much higher price point. Those agents, I think, are very familiar with the ins and outs of the property and will remind sellers of things they may have missed on there. So I think that's great. But advising is a little bit different.
Yeah. The ones I see wrong more than half the time, shared fences.
Almost every time.
Yeah. And sprinklers. Do you have sprinklers? Yes, no. Did they work? Yes, no. Are they automatic? Yes, no. Like those.
Is every area covered with them? Yes, no.
Right. So I don't know. I at my house, I don't know if there's an area that isn't covered. Right. I mean, I have sprinklers that spray. Do I know if it covers that corner? I don't know.
So all of this reminds me of one of my least favorite thing that TCs do. absolute hate when TCs do this. And that is when they receive seller disclosures and their buyer's agent TC, and they say, this, and this are wrong on the disclosures. Please have the sellers correct them. It's like, no.
Yeah.
That's not your job.
Nope.
I understand that you see that. You are welcome to create an addendum your end that says buyer's agent, whatever, make it your responsibility. But when a buyer's agent TC tells a listing agent and or their TC to have their sellers correct disclosures, I think that's very problematic.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely no. Hard no.
Yeah. It happens quite often.
Oh yeah, but hard no.
I mean, if they're like not answered at all, I do that all the time. Say, hi, these 18 questions don't have any answers. That's one thing.
Yeah, you missed a section. Can you go back and fill in the section? Right.
Yeah.
You missed a disclosure different than it's wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like the fence thing, if I see clearly on the MLS there's fences, I'll say, just to confirm, are there no fences? It's marked no. That's about as far into that as I get. Just like, please confirm these are correct.
Right.
And then they'll usually do them, but it's like sometimes TCs get very involved when they shouldn't and you're not be there.
And a TC is not going to direct a seller to change a disclosure. If anything, the agent can go, oh, yes, we need to fix this because...
Yeah. And a lot of agents will ask me to do that. It's like, hi, can you confirm these are correct? It's like, nope, absolutely not. I've never been to the property. I'll never go to the property. I'm not looking at pictures of the property for you. Nope. I will not confirm any of this.
Yeah. Talk to the listing agent.
Mm-hmm. Or my own agent will do it. Like, well, I'll have the seller fill out disclosures and then I'll have everyone sign them. And they'll say, hi, did these look correct to you? And I said, I don't know. They have signatures on them. They look great to me.
Yeah.
Every answer is completed. That's all I care about.
Yep. In my lane, yes, they look great.
Sorry, but I do not have intimate knowledge of this property. I am not going to confirm any of this and make it my liability.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as your broker, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see. What else is on my list that I want to know about? All right, so transaction history. So the first American Ignite tool that I use, I think most of us internally use it, has that combined report, right? That has property information, transaction history, school districts, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. How often do you see those in disclosures or something similar, RPR reports or whatever the...
Very, very rarely. It's either a random brokerage disclosure requirement. So I have one broker who requires that if the property was sold in the last 3 years, that we have to either provide as the seller or ask the seller to include in their disclosures any inspections reports and disclosures from the previous transaction in the last 3 years. So a lot of times if it's like an investor who flipped, they want to know, what did the disclosures look like when you purchased it, and then give us an outline of the scope of work performed. Mm-hmm. So that's when they'll refer to that, or they'll have a just want people to sign it. Don't know why. Don't know what on there they're trying to indicate is very important.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it's just an item that gets uploaded to the checklist and nobody looks at it but me and the broker or auditor.
Yeah. I got a call this morning actually from an appraiser on my listing in Camino, where on tax records and transaction history, it shows that the seller bought the property in 23 for $94,000. It's a 600 square foot cabin, but he paid that in cash and then took over the subject to the loan for 150. We're selling it for about 300. So, the appraiser or the bank asked the appraiser, how come he paid 94,000 3 years ago and now it's 300,000? Like, what did he knock it down and build a new house there? Like, what happened? And so the appraiser called me and said, what? And so I had to clarify that. And I called the seller and I got the answer, but, that is a transaction history. I mean, they're looked at. That isn't just ignored. Like,
yeah. Oh, I look at them for several different reasons. It's got the APN. It's got the current owner of the property. I make sure those are all correct. It's got the year built. It's got square footage. I confirm all of the details with what we have in the file to make sure there's no discrepancies there. So yeah, it's just another factor for me to interpret to have the information I need.
Yeah, it's I put them in all of mine because I pull it anyway, and I'm like, well, it's here, drag it in the glide. Like,
yeah,
it cost me this.
Yeah,
that's all it is. Mm-hmm. What about instructions? Right, how to use the pool and spa equipment? How to, how does the HVAC thing work? Where what the two zones cover? Right, like, Anything like that? You see that very often?
So it's more rare than I think it should be, but it seems like it typically happens on escrows where the cooperating agents get along very well. They're very polite to each other, and the sellers are either very kind and looking out for the buyers, or the buyer's agent is thinking about the buyers living in the home, not just closing the property, and looking forward on what they might need in terms of information. Or it's just like, hi, we left some information on the counter with the keys. So
I see
it's,
that more often than actually in disclosures.
yes, it's never in disclosures. It's always like towards the close of escrow.
Right.
Like here are the 8 questions that my buyers have in terms of living in the home. And it's interestingly always been when agents are very kind to each other in email.
Yeah.
That they ask for that information.
So I've seen recently, and I've started to do this, to write an FAQ sheet that I will put in like those little stand-up things on like the kitchen counter. I had one in San Jose recently where where's the community pool? Right? Where's the mailbox? So there wasn't like the normal, it's a townhouse. There wasn't like the normal silver boxes that people have because they're in the garage, right? Like it's like a mail slot in the garage. What else? HOA, what's the HOA cost a month? What does it include? Like just normal things that the buyer's agent gets asked while standing in the property. And so a little, 8.5 by 11 and a stand up that had 7 questions on it. And I was told that was very helpful. I saw one through where I got the idea where they put in the people had done a lot of work and they were like, new HVAC 2025, new, water heater 2022. Like it was just kind of a list of things that we've done and dates. It wasn't anything major. I was like, that's a good idea. And then I started getting the same question over and over and over on that listing in San Jose. And I was like, I'm just going to make a thing and put it on things. So people stop asking me this stuff. I need to do one for my one in Granite Bay about the solar farm. But anyway, yeah, so I see that.
I think that ties into agents being very invested and thoughtful with their properties.
Yeah.
Instead of just thinking of it as their next paycheck, which, it's important too. But I do. Yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe agents also don't do that because they want the interaction. They want the chance to talk to people and say these things. Your camera just cut out for a second there. That was weird.
I think we're back. All right. Yeah. My internet dropped for some reason. That was fun.
Okay. That's good. I was saying, I think sometimes agents don't do this because they want the interaction. They want the ability to have the conversation, to explain these things, to walk through the house with the potential buyer, with the buyer's agent, what have you, and have that connection and that kind of rapport building.
Yeah. I don't meet most of the other side agents most of the time.
This is more so like open house settings. I'm picturing.
Okay. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So to that point, I know a lot of agents because I'm out and about and I do things and I just know agents because I know agents. But unless I knew you before the transaction, there is a very, very low likelihood I'm going to see you during the transaction at all. Like there's a very low chance that I'm going to look you in the eye and shake your hand. Not because I don't want to, just because that's the nature of what we do. Everything's remote, right?
Which is so fascinating. That there's just there's no face-to-face with agents. That's so fascinating to me. I mean, I get it if you have multiple transactions going at once, but if you're a one-off at a time kind of agent, which is very common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
kind of lonely.
I have an agent friend, and I'm going to save this story for another podcast, but we went to hell and back on a transaction, and we ended up getting dinner. Her and her husband and me and Natalie went out to dinner afterwards because we needed a drink after that transaction. And we met, and she was a broker associate, and I called her with the, what would you do if you were asked this question? And I have a few brokers like that I'll call and be like, hey, so this is a new one for me. I don't know what to do with this. And usually the answer is call Car Legal, but I like to pretend
it's a great resource
that I can figure it out.
Let me tell you.
But the last thing I have, because we're well over an hour now, JR did this once, and he actually paid a civil engineer to draw a site plan with setbacks. There's a problem. Let's let's do another one soon. So we don't just, let's not wait 6 months to do another one. When in doubt, disclose. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again. We'll see you soon. Bye. 3-foot side or whatever it was. I don't know. And you could fit an ADU of N dimensions right here and include it in disclosures. And it wasn't full plans. It wasn't anything super egregious. He probably paid $100 for a site plan. Do you ever see that, or is that something you've never heard of until just now?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of virtual staging, which I think is great.
I hate that.
Oh, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's so many people need the visual to see what the space would look like with stuff in it. I think quite a few people struggle with being able to conceptualize space.
Sure.
So I think it's great.
Then stage the house. Like, don't.
Yeah.
The $15, I'm going to put a table right here that isn't to scale and looks stupid. Like, stop that. It makes me crazy.
Agree to disagree with that one.
In MetroList, you actually have to call that out. You actually have to say it's virtually staged. But in Realtor Redfin, I don't remember, there is a strip the room button, and you can push the button to strip all the furniture out. And then you can do, I think it's Redfin. You can actually say, redecorate, and you can paint the walls, and you can like do all kind of neat stuff just on their website.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty neat.
I'm pretty sure the home we bought, they staged to take photos, and then they destaged it before they put it on market.
Yeah.
Which also works.
That's the thing. Yeah. So, I had a flip that we staged, and they went for inspections, or they went back for second. Like, they had the inspector come back out to like explain things on the report. And they said, "Hey, we can't get in." I'm like, "Well, why?" Like, there's a lockbox. Open the lockbox. There's no lockbox. What do you mean there's no lockbox? So I go down there. I have a set of keys. I drive down there. Lockbox is gone. Like, what the?
Oh, goodness.
So open the door, and I'm like, "Okay, you got it. Where's all my furniture?"
Oh, my goodness.
And apparently they backed a moving truck into the driveway, broke the lockbox, opened the door, moved everything out like they were movers. No one said a thing. And
lovely.
Yeah, we used Rent-A-Center just to put, a living room and a dining set in there just to, again, for scale and stuff. And we had to buy an entire living room set and an entire dining room set because they just took them. So I can see the value in stage it, take pictures, destage it, right?
Yep.
Especially in lower income, lower quality neighborhoods, right? Where that stuff, but mine was in a not a high price point, not a great neighborhood, a lot of traffic and not many cars, if that makes sense. But that happens, right? So I can see it, especially if someone's staging it themselves. Agents that just have a trailer full of things and they show up with their own stuff.
Yeah.
Set it up, take photos, get it out. And if you're paying somebody, I guess you could, I don't even know what that would cost. Have a stager come in and just stage it for a day or a week.
An hour. Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Don't leave. Just hang out. Move the truck 4 doors down so I can take a picture. But
go get a coffee and then come back.
Come back and take all your shit back.
Yeah.
That's wonky. So anyway, I thank you for your time. I always love when we get on here and just have chats.
Absolutely.
And